So Adam,
Nathan,
welcome to the first episode of the podcast.
I want to say thanks for having me, but this better not be the last time.
Well, you never know. We'll see how you do.
I guess so.
Being the first episode of the podcast, should we talk about what it's called?
I think that's a great idea.
Oh, good. Okay, so what's it called?
I thought you wrote that down.
You thought I wrote it down?
Yeah.
I thought.
Oh, this is awkward.
Oh. Okay, well, let's just name it here. Let's call it
Battlestar.
Battle de Podcasta? I don't think that's okay. No. But something violent though, you're thinking?
It's just what I'm feeling in the moment.
Yeah, something violent probably. I mean, it's content. Like the podcast is content.
This is content?
I mean, it will be. Probably. Assuming they remembered to hit record.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, let's go with Content Wars, I think maybe.
Content Wars?
Content Wars.
How did you come up with the name Content Wars?
When companies are trying to market themselves, there's really only two ways that's going to happen. It's going to happen on a one-to-one basis where you're in front of someone or a representative from your company is in front of someone talking to an individual. You could potentially at a trade show be talking to many people if you're on a stage. But other than that, if you want to have a prayer of actually reaching your audience in a way that matters and in a way that you can transfer your information, your message, your value, your experience, your fill in the blank to that audience, you're going to have to do it with content. And when you look at it, every company is in that same position. So the reality is that every company needs to have content that is able to win over their audience. There is a literal war for your audience's mind, preference, dollars that's going on. And content is the biggest and best weapon that you have if you do it correctly. So the companies that want to or are striving to get the attention of their audience, the trust of their audience, and eventually the dollars of their audience need to get into the content game in a much more major way. And as we progress in this, and we've already seen it in the B2B space from, back from 2011, 2012, all of a sudden the blog was cool. Well, you look around now and every company, every B2B company has a blog. They're all cranking out content, but those times have changed. I mean, we're not in the time of let's just write a blog and everybody's going to read the blog. That's not the society we live in today. So I think B2B content is going to change. It's going to start changing. We're going to have a lot more personal content happening. We're going to have a lot more actual experts in the conversation within the content. And I think as you bring two things into account, one, the additional types of content that you're going to need to create, whether that be video content, audio content, written content. There's a greater need for content now than ever before. And then you're also going to have the challenge of the actual experts and expertise that you're bringing within your content. So it's no longer, oh, sure, just look up some keywords and have the marketing team create some SEO content and hope that someone comes to your website. There's an actual competition that's going on for your audience's mind and attention where you better bring your A game. You better produce meaningful content. You better have people that know what the hell they're talking about presenting it. And when you look at that competition that's going on, it is very similar to a war. There will be a winner, and to win, you better sharpen your axe.
And I think that's one of the things that we've seen a lot of companies kind of fall behind on over the last few years is that they're really focused on the end of that customer's journey, or at least the middle end. And at that point, they already have a preference for somebody else built, and you've essentially lost that battle. And so the types of content you're talking about, I love, because it really helps bring that conversation earlier before a buying trigger. And it really allows you to transfer the belief that you know about your company, and you allow your audience to learn that and essentially determine if it's a good fit for them, but it will help you win the war over a longer period of time.
Oh, definitely. You're fighting a multi-front war, whereas I think historically we've just looked at the front of who's ready to buy right now, be there in a way that informs them so that they can buy with you immediately. I mean,
but you've lost at that point. They've already made up their mind. Whenever they know what they want and need, they usually have a preference towards somebody. And if it's not you, the chances of you winning that are really slim.
It's just not realistic that somebody is searching and then comes across your blog and then digests your blog and then has that preference for you and ends up buying, at least the majority of the time, from you in that situation. That's not real. That's not how people consume content. That's not how people nowadays. That's not really how people look for content. It doesn't all happen at that last little leg of the journey there, where they're just going to consume all the content and then make a purchasing decision. That's not real. So part of the strategy is having a multi-front approach to where how can we be part of that buyer or influencer or customer's life well before, leading up to, during, and then well after whatever that purchase is going to be. And that's really what the battle becomes. There's no, oh, well, we need just this piece of content or just that piece of content. It's, no, we need to figure out how do we add value? How do we be meaningful in this person's life or these people's lives across the board, whether they're buying or not. And we do have to admit, the majority of the time, they're not buying. So how do we just add value to that equation? And that becomes the strategy for the war that you're engaged in.
No, that's a great point. So looking at content wars and thinking about future episodes, what is it that we're going to be covering in future episodes?
So obviously the type of content that we produce is heavily video focused, but that's not the only type of content. I think it's important for us to eat our own dog food in a way and actually be that valuable resource for our audience, which many times is either going to be either from a marketing background or potentially from an executive background. Basically, how do we communicate with our audience in a more meaningful way with content so that we can win the content war in our industry and become that voice for our potential buyers. So I think what we're going to be talking a lot about is what is the content you need to be creating in different situations? How can you add value? How can you be that voice? How can you become viewed as that expert? Whether we're talking about a customer that is in a buying journey, they've already bought, or more than likely, they're not even thinking about your product or service. And being able to really sit down with not just us. We're going to have a lot of experience going through different types of video, having it applied in different ways, in different formats, in different marketing scenarios. But there's also stuff outside of our realm that I think we'll need to bring other people into the conversation that will be able to add value. Because, at the end of the day, we want this to be something that the marketing community and the executive community is going to be able to consume and say, hey, there's value here. Not that I need video content right now necessarily, but I can at least learn how these principles apply and how we might be able to evolve and grow our current content efforts into something a little bit more meaningful for our audience. And whether that's with video, whether it's with written content, whether it's with audio, there's a lot that I think we can all learn moving forward in a format like this.
So we're sitting here in what looks a little bit like a war zone, pun intended, but realistically over the next few weeks, this is going to transform into something pretty cool. You want to just share with everybody that's either watching or listening kind of what the vision is for this?
Yeah, so the whole premise of not just the podcast that we're getting into, but also the direction our company is going is how do we help companies meaningfully contribute to the conversation within their market, right? And prior to now, we've been primarily a video production company. We have helped companies go in and create awesome content that they were able to share with their audiences. To take that a step further, we've actually decided to completely gut our offices, move into a temporary space, gut our offices, completely redo it, and turn it into a production studio that's a little bit different than most production studios. I mean, you go into most production studios and you're looking at video studios that are really geared toward B2C content. You're expecting, we've got actors and actresses coming in, we've got product flying in, we've got different things that are more slanted to either a narrative, a fictional type situation, or commercial product in some way, and B2B just has different needs. So, when we started thinking about what is it that we're going to do as a company, where are we going to focus, and obviously we're staying with B2B, we're staying on the video train. It's how do we create a space that adds value to that conversation? What are the spaces that B2B needs to make sense? So we created this beautiful spot right here.
May have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit back to the drawing board, but this is the introduction, kind of first looks for most people of where we're going. But when we're done here, we'll have multiple podcast studios, we'll have webinar studios, we'll have a full psych wall studio, we'll have a conference room and office settings, we'll have a collaborative space, we'll have a lot of areas that B2B content can be created in, and not just a single video. And I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of video, is a single we need a video. This is not that space. It is not the space to come in and say, we knocked that video out of the park and we're done. This is the space to come into and really spend some time. Spend the day here. Go and create a multitude of content types, everything from a multi-person podcast, single-person podcast, bouncing to a webinar, bouncing to a roundtable. So it has to do with how do we actually get our clients into this space and really allow them to maximize their time so that they can create not just the quality of content that they need to make an impact for their market, but also the quantity of content that they're going to need in order to effectively and continually communicate with their audience.
And I think that's what's so interesting about us doing this in this space right now. We're kind of christening it with a conversation like this, but that's the goal for us moving forward, is to really create a space where people can come into and have those conversations that help drive their voice in the market, because I really feel like that is missing today from at least the market that we serve, because there's so many people who have the excuse of, I don't have a place to do it, or I don't have a way for my executive team to come in, I don't have a place for them to do it consistently or for it to look different and have different feels. And so building this space, and when it all comes together, it's really going to be a unique spot where we can capture multiple looks, multiple topics, multiple people, and really drive that conversation forward in the market.
And that's probably the most important thing. There are 1,000 excuses of why executives don't create content. There's 1,000 excuses of why.
And we'll be getting into some of those.
That might happen. There's just excuses, right? So the goal is, how do we take away as many excuses as possible and really create an environment where there's no hassle, there's no headache. You can literally walk in, sit down. We've got lights, cameras, and microphones ready to go. You can literally come off the street, sit down, hit record, and just say what you need to say within your market and create that meaningful content versus, we got to talk to the production companies and they got to come out here and they got to set this up, and are they available, and what's going to happen. It becomes a hassle, especially when you're dealing with executive calendars and schedules. It's hard to line it up, especially if there's multiple. You want to do a podcast with 2 or 3 executives? Have fun lining up their schedule with a production company's schedule. Have fun having everybody get in that same area. It doesn't always work out that way. So when you have a space that you can just walk into and sit down and record, and You can do it at 12 o'clock that day. You could do it at 3 o'clock that day. It really doesn't matter the time. You remove some of that hurdle, you remove some of that obstacle, and you open up the possibility of people being a little bit more willing to commit to, oh, sure, you know what, I'll go in there and we'll sit down and we'll just have this conversation about, what we need to talk about, and not, oh, well, it's this big hassle and maybe we'll do it and maybe we won't. And the big benefit I see, if we can tear down the reasons not to do it, if it's already set up, if it's already ready to go, now we're enabling the marketing teams and the executive teams to shed the excuses and just start creating the content that they need and that their audience probably would like to hear from them. And it opens up a whole world of possibilities. You're talking about not just, oh, we did that product launch video, or, oh, we did that overview video, or, oh, we did one case study last year. It opens up the opportunity to come in and do a multitude of content and really start to become a presence, not just for the company, but also for the executives themselves, for the thought leaders themselves, for the customers themselves that are involved in these markets and involved in these products and these services, to show value to the customer base, to the market, and really gain a meaningful voice rather than, well, we created a video once.
And that's an interesting point that you hit on, because over the last probably year or two, just being in more conversations with clients, the thing that comes up again and again is a video. We did a video, or we did a few videos and we're done. And I think that that's just a common misconception. I know we're going to get into that in later episodes of the show, but it's really something that I want everybody to know that is just fundamentally flawed. If you're trying to gain momentum on a certain front, literally like a battle in a war, you cannot do one thing, one maneuver, one attack, one anything. You have to constantly have your voice present in the market. And the only way you can do that is by creating a continual stream of content that your audience resonates with, because they're not going to see every video. They're not going to read every post. They're not going to see each and every piece that you put out. And so saying things again and again and in different ways and in ways that inspire and educate, it has a true lasting impact over time, where they begin to form this belief or this opinion or this preference towards your organization.
Yeah, and it isn't like we don't know this. And you talk to any marketer, you talk to any executive, they already know it. You talk to the marketing team and oh yeah, we create a blog article a week. Well, why do you do that? Well, the repetition and the compounding factor of the content over time has value. Okay. You talk to the executive team. Oh yeah, hey, I saw this industry leader or that industry leader at this conference or on this social thing. Oh, well, who is the voice of the market? Oh, well, it's this person that I've seen a lot. So the goal is, let's combine these ideas. Combine the idea of consistency and repetition and compounding influence over time, in addition to the people we see, the people that are talking, the people that are out front, the people that are in front of an audience are the market leader. If you're consistently creating the content and you're consistently in front of that audience, you start to become viewed as that market leader. And that's what's missing in so much B2B marketing at this point, where, honestly, most companies are waiting to be found versus going and actively talking to their audience. And
I feel like there's so many of them that we talk to that have this, like, these either an expert or a group of experts, and they're like pent up and put in the corner. Like they help influence the day-to-day success of the organization, but they're not in the front, having conversations, sharing their expertise, sharing their knowledge, and allowing that to drive relationships and conversations before they become a customer. And it's like, man, there's so much underutilized talent and knowledge that you could broadcast to your audience and really get them to understand what makes you different, what you believe in, what you stand for, what you don't believe in, and really polarizing the market into moving in one direction or another. They just don't highlight those people.
Yeah, and it's difficult from both perspectives, right? It's difficult for the marketing team to go into the executive team and say, hey, we got this crazy idea, we want to do something totally different. It's difficult for the executive team to say, well, hell, go ahead and put me on camera. I'm not sure what I'm going to say or how I'm going to do it or what's going to happen here. So there's hesitancy on both sides of that equation. So not many are really taking that path. Now you can pull up YouTube, you can pull up LinkedIn, to a lesser degree, you can pull up TikTok and see people that are doing this, and they're doing it well, and they're becoming that voice. They're becoming that influence within their market and that trusted resource. And honestly, they're winning more than just influence. They're winning deals out of that. So we know the model's there. We know that it's not going away. It's only going to increase. So, for the companies that are having that difficult decision of, we can't keep doing things the way that we've been doing. We have to change. Maybe we're unsure how we're going to change. Maybe we're unsure what needs to change. Maybe we're unsure who needs to be involved, or it could be as simple as we know what to do, we just don't know what first step to take. That's two things. That's what I think this podcast is really geared toward, helping people decide. I mean, not everything we say is going to apply to everyone, and not everything we say is going to be 100% correct or 100% applicable to every situation. It just won't. But if we can create content that applies to the majority or applies to certain situations, and it can help marketers progress the message that they need in their market, or it can help an executive express themselves and get their ideas and their position out into a market so someone can more clearly understand who they are, what they do, the value of what they're offering, it's going to be worth it. And I think, whether our space here or, a different content studio is going to be a valuable resource when creating that type of content, when they move beyond just written form.
Awesome. Well, I know that there's going to be a lot more that we talk about in future episodes. The space will probably look a lot different next time we're sitting down talking.
I sure as hell hope so.
But I think that definitely sets the stage for what we're about to experience kind of in this year and moving forward. And I know that I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it should be fun. It'll definitely be an interesting path. I mean, not just what happens here, but, the conversations, because none of the conversations that I want to have, I want it to be highly technical or, nerd out over the situation. I want it to be super applicable in situations that we actually run into with clients, with prospects, the hurdles, the challenges, the problems, the things we do awesome, also the things we completely F up, right? Like let's put it out there and say, hey, let's grow together. And, if that helps somebody, great, awesome. Let's do it. I have no reservation for being wrong. It's going to happen. We're all human. We're all wrong. It happened only once to me so far.
Can we confirm this with your wife?
Yeah, no, it was only once. It was only once, and it definitely wasn't with her. But the more we can share, and the more we can bring to a platform like this, and the more we can help everybody grow together, I think the more benefit we bring, the more benefit that everyone's going to get out of it. So that's what I'm excited about. Obviously, our studio space is going to be cool. It'll be much better when our podcast actually looks like a podcast and not a war zone. But I don't know.
Seems fitting.
Maybe the whole war zone thing is better. I don't know. Content war. So here we go.